right, chat. Hello. Today we're back with the Season 4 settings and tips video that has been highly requested. This is an interesting one because there's been a couple changes to the settings over the last 3 months since I made the last settings video. Overall, though, if you watch the first one, there isn't going to be too much that's changed, but I will go over a few things that I didn't go over in the first settings video, and also I will be going over some of the new settings and stuff, but I'll still take you through everything. To start, we'll be looking at the game. Nothing's really changed here if you watch the previous video. As you can see, they added a couple new things, I guess move things around, but really nothing's changing too much here. This is all going to be preference, same with hit effect color. Only stuff here is kind of people ask about how I do my stash and how I keep auto sorting. I usually just keep the auto sort when opening stash on because people wonder how I move things around, and then it sorts again. I check Q and E quickly and it auto sorts every time I open it. So that's a nice setting people don't know about. And then, of course, you can set the order of how you want things in your stash. Moving along to combat, keyboard and mouse settings. Sensitivity I've been fooling with a bit, but really hasn't changed too much here. I haven't changed anything else, but this is everything else. I haven't touched any of the warfare settings. That's all default. Binds-wise, nothing's really changed here as well. But one thing I did want to go over that I hadn't in the previous video was talking about rangefinder. People were curious how I do that bind when I use the cheater scope, or what is actually called the M157, which is one of the nicer scopes in the game that we use quite a bit. This is the scope that if you rangefinder someone with it, you will actually get a indicator of where they are in their name. So I use mouse wheel down so you can hear me hitting the input multiple times. I get the range, and this would scan somebody. So I'd recommend setting this as your bind so you can just be constantly scanning certain areas rather than having to press a key over and over. A scroll wheel just makes that really easy. Moving along here into screen and interaction, nothing's changed here. Again, this is all just going to be preference with your binds. Like, you can copy what I have, you know, pause and take a look at what I have, but really at the end of the day, you just need to be comfortable pressing the binds that you have, and it shouldn't depend on what I have. Screen, this again is going to be preference. They added these settings recently. I don't like it when I close the backpack with meat attack, I end up hitting tab again. If you want it to be immediately pulling out when you make contact with somebody, then this is a good setting to have. Graphics, now here's where things kind of change up a bit. So they've added a few new settings here. Some of these are going to be dependent on your rig and your computer, so I would mess around. If certain things don't feel right, don't be afraid to change and do different things than I have. Like fast sync, I honestly have no idea what this is. This could be really useful for some people. I haven't messed with it. My game is still running really great. I haven't had any issues. They added flash eye protection mode, so if you get blinded, you'd rather the blind be a darker color than like flashing your whole screen white, then I'd recommend turning this on. Honestly, I might just turn on and test it out. I haven't really used it yet. Nothing's changed here in my basic graphics. I just like keeping everything low and off. The game still looks great, but I want it running at the highest performance possible. Everything's going to be the same here and low. And then finally, super resolution. One thing that's changed here that I've messed around with, but honestly, over the last 2 months, I have not played with frame generation. The frame generation is something you want to mess with if you have a 40 series card or above, and generally just all these super resolution settings you can kind of toy around with to see what is best for you. I think balance looks good and it plays well for me, so I just use that. Same with all of these different super resolution modes. You really just kind of have to test what's best, but you could use mine as a baseline and kind of move from there. I am pretty much a consistent 240, and the game runs great, so I feel like I don't need the frame generation. If I turn this on, I legitimately can double my frames and be around 300 or 400, which looks great, but people argue there could be potentially input lag, and honestly, it just kind of like doesn't feel that much different. And I guess it looks cool to have over 300 to 400 frames in a game like this, but it again really doesn't do much. Now, a really important thing I recently found out that I would really test, again, you can just kind of see what works for you. Some people don't have this issue, but I was playing on low latency, and I actually found out that this is causing the teleport problem. If you guys have problems when you're around corners and you kind of seem like you teleport off of them or have these really weird hitches, I would recommend messing with the low latency settings and specifically turning it off. Ever since I've done that, I haven't had any teleporting issues anymore, and it's made a huge difference for me. And then finally, they added this FSR frame generation. This is for computers that aren't using DLSS. Again, you can try this for more frames on certain rigs. Finally, looking at the audio settings, this is also something that's been a touch with the new update in season 4. They have added changes to HRTF, specifically adding 2 different modes with it now. Now, no matter what, I 100% recommend you play HRTF. Just don't play with it off, but pick one of these 2. I personally don't like the object-based binaural audio. It sounds really good directionally, but it just doesn't sound whole to me, if that makes sense. It feels really awkward in certain situations, and I don't get to hear like the full picture. I feel like I'm just hearing in like a weird circle. I don't know. If you played with it, you understand what I'm saying. This is going to be preference. Just try one of these, but I would recommend binaural audio. And then finally, also make sure your sound effects are on 100. I actually have some friends who were playing at 100 sound effects, but I think it's important because you don't know exactly what sounds are considered master volume and what sounds are considered sound effects. I don't know, grenades and grenades and like footsteps could be on 2 different volume levels, and I think it's important to keep your sound effects all the way up and just mess with your master volume from there. The last 2 things I want to go over, again, people consistently ask me, how does my game look like this? How do you get the colors like this? Download Vibrance UI. It's in the description. I just have my digital vibrance cranked to 100%. Vibrance UI is just a program I use to launch vibrance on certain programs, so I don't constantly have 100% digital vibrance across my monitor when I'm just like browsing the internet and stuff like that. Yeah, all I use is legit 100% vibrance. I just like making my games look colorful. Finally, we're going to go over NVIDIA control panel settings. People wanted to see these. Really going to be nothing special here, but I guess it's important for people who maybe haven't adjusted this before. Really, for FPS reasons, all you're really going to want to mess around with is just specifically in these 3D settings. So first, I would just use advanced image settings, and so we're going to go here. Do not let the application decide, so I'll just kind of scroll through this. Honestly, it's been a long time since I've changed a lot of this. It may not be the best, but again, this is just what works for me, and my computer runs really well. I haven't had any issues in any games, so again, if you haven't really messed with this, I would just copy this, and I guarantee you're going to have better performance. But if things don't work, don't be afraid to just hit restore to the default settings. But yeah, that's it. If you guys have any questions about the settings, I'll try to be answering them in my comments pretty actively. If you have any suggestions for future content or other stuff you're curious about with my settings or gameplay, please let me know. Have a good day. I'll see you guys in the next video.